Okay. Okay, we are discussing about the characteristics of living organisms, ma. Okay, what are the characters that are determined? Okay, which are determining the living condition of an organism. Okay, so we have discussed about growth, reproduction, metabolism, and next response to the environment or a response to the stimuli, and next self-consciousness, and we also discussed about the organization in the living organisms. So okay, here we'll come across some other properties, like in higher classes you will come to know that all living phenomena are due to underlying interactions. Okay, that means here by observing a single characteristic feature, we can't say that the organisms are living. So that means here the living feature of an organism is due to the interaction of all the characteristics that we have studied above. Okay, that means they show metabolism, they show reproduction. Okay, they show response to the stimuli. When all these interactions, when all these are interacted, then only the organism will be in a living condition. So that what we can understand with the organization in the living organisms. Okay, properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cells, but arise as a result of interactions among the constituent cells. That means here the function of the tissue, okay, it is okay, the function of any tissue or any organ in our body is not because of the presence of different types of cells, but the interaction between the different types of cells or different cells that are present in the tissue. Okay, each cell may function differently and each produce different chemical substances. But when all these chemical substances and all these functions, when they are interacted, then the overall function of the tissue will be observed. Overall function of the tissue is observed. So that's what we can see here. Okay. So that means the properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cell. That means the cells that are present in the tissue, but arise as a result of interactions among the constituent cells. That means whatever the cells that are present in the tissue, the interaction between those cells is bringing the function of that cell or of that tissue. Similarly, if you take a cell also, okay, a cell consists of different types of cell organelles. So the interaction between the different cell organelles that are present in a cell will brings the function of the 1 minute, ma. Okay. Okay, some are okay. That means the function of an individual cell also depends upon the interaction between the different cell organelles that are present in that cell. Okay, so similar properties of cell organelles are present in the molecular constituents of the organelle, but arise as a result of interactions among the molecular components comprising the organelle. That means if you take a cell organelle also, okay, every cell organelle has its own function. For example, we say mitochondria. Mitochondria is involved in respiration. Chloroplast. Chloroplast is involved in photosynthesis. Okay. And next, ribosomes. Ribosomes are involved in protein synthesis. Okay. That is smooth endoplasmic reticulum that is involved in lipid metabolism. Okay, like that. Every cell organelle has its own function. here the functioning of the cell organelle, okay, the functioning of the cell organelle depends upon the, okay, the molecular constituents that are present in that cell organelle. That means what are the different types of chemical substances that are present in that cell organelle will brings the functioning of that cell organelle. So, okay, at a different level, that means if we take a cell organelle, the molecular constituents between the molecular constituents of that cell organelle bringing its function. If we take a cell, okay, the cell organelles, the, okay, the interaction among the cell organelles that are present in that cell is bringing its function. If you take a tissue, the okay, the functions of the different cells that are, okay, the interactions between the different types of cells that are present in that tissue is bringing the functioning of the tissue. Okay, so that means here the interaction is very, very important. Okay, that is. So these interactions result in emergent properties at a higher level of complexity, okay, higher level of organization. So we can observe very clearly this interaction, okay, the properties of interactions at a higher level of organization. Okay, the multicellular organisms. In multicellular organisms, we'll find different levels of organization. We'll find cellular level organization, tissue level organization, okay, organ grade organization, and organ system grade organization. So here higher level is the organ system grade organization. If we take a organ system, that means if we take, for example, a digestive system, if we take a digestive system consists of different parts like mouth, oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and the anus. All these organs are made up of the same type of tissues? No. Different organs are made up of different tissues. Understand, that means whenever all these organs are interacting together, then the digestion process can occur, or the digestive system can function as a unit. For example, if the, okay, if any problem occurs to the small intestine, the total digestion is affected. The total digestion process may be affected. So here the interaction between different organs to form an organ system. And at the same time, if you take an organ, for example, if you take a stomach, okay, the stomach consists of different tissues. It consists of mucosa layer, submucosa, serosa, muscularis. Okay, like this, we'll find different tissues. When the interaction among all these tissues is there, then the functioning of the stomach will be happening. If any tissue is affected, or if any tissue is not functioning properly, it affects the functioning of the stomach. Okay, that is. And next, when you observe that, okay, different tissues, okay, we'll find a tissue which is made up of many cells. If the cells are okay, the cells that are present in the tissue are interacted, then only the tissue may be functional. So that's what you can see here. So the interactions, you can see here, the interactions result in emerging higher level of organization. This phenomenon is true in the hierarchy of organizational complexity at all levels. Okay, that means we'll find a hierarchy of complexity. That is first cells, next cellular grade organization. First you find unicellular organisms, and next cellular grade organisms, and next tissue grade organisms, and next organ grade organisms, and next sorry, organ system grade organism, and finally the organism. Okay, organisms, populations, okay, ecosystem, okay, and next biome and biosphere. Like that, we'll find different organizations. Okay, so here the complexity is increasing from lower groups of organisms to the higher groups of organisms. Therefore, we can say that living organisms self-replicating, okay, evolving and self-regulating interactive systems capable of responding to the external stimuli. Okay. Therefore, we can say that living organisms are self-replicating. And next, evolving. Okay, self-replicating means they can undergo reproduction and they produce the new ones, new generation. And evolving, that means, okay, they develop some new characters from one generation to another generation. Okay, and they may give rise to new species in course of time period. That is called evolving. And they make changes according to the changes in the environment, so that they develop some new characters and finally develops into new species also. And self-regulating, that means it can regulate its, that means depending upon the changes in the environment, it will undergo certain changes. Okay, and self-regulating interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. That means, okay, all the organisms will respond to the external stimuli, that is changes in the environment. Okay, so, and next, biology is the story of life on earth. Okay, the biology, that biology is nothing but, okay, it will discuss about life on earth. That means it may in different ways, all related to living organisms. Okay, so biology is the story of evolution of living organisms on earth. Okay, in biology only we'll study about the evolution, how the living organisms have first evolved, and gradually how they have been developed from unicellular organisms to the highly evolved one, how the gradual development has been taken place. So all living organisms, present, past, and future, are linked to one another by the sharing of a common genetic material, but to varying degrees. So when you observe the living organisms, okay, all living organisms that may be present, okay, that may be present living on this earth. Okay, some are lived in the past period of time, but present they are not present. That means they have undergone extinction. And in the future also some new organisms may arise. Okay, all these are interlinked. Okay, one organism is linked with the another organism. How it is possible? It is because, how we can say that, okay, they are linked to one another means when you observe these organisms, okay, these organisms are having, okay, these organisms are having, okay, when you observe here, okay, how we can say that one, okay, all the organisms are linked means are having a common genetic material, that is the DNA. Okay, DNA is the genetic material in most of the present, past, and future organisms. But there is a variation in the genetic material. Okay, there is some variation in the genetic material. That's why okay, it is bringing this differences. Okay, that one we'll discuss about that in the later period of time. And the next one is the diversity in the living world. Okay, that means we are observing the different types of living organisms in this world. Okay, all this we are called, okay, this difference in the living organisms in the world, okay, okay, is nothing but we are describing it as a diversity. Okay, in simply we say it as a biodiversity. Okay, we can also use the term biodiversity, that is the presence of different types of living organisms on the earth. Okay, that is so that what we can see here. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms. Okay, if you look around, you'll see a large variety of living organisms, be it be potted plants, insects, birds, your pets, or other animals and plants. Okay, we'll find different types of organisms around. Okay, that is some are plants, some are insects. Okay, we'll find birds, different types of birds around you, and we'll find some pet animals which are growing along with your home, in your home. And next, some other animals that is which we are taming. Okay, that is tamed animals, that is cows, buffaloes, goat, sheep, like this. And we'll find some plants. Okay, crop plants will find, wild plants will find around us. Okay, that is there are also several organisms that you cannot see with your naked eye, but they are all around you. But there are some organisms, microorganisms we commonly call it as, okay, which we cannot see with our naked eye, but they are present around us. Okay, that is. And if you were to increase the area that you make observations in, the range and variety of organisms that you see would increase. That means in your, okay, whatever the area that you are seeing is a small area. If you move to other place, okay, if you move to other place, and if you try to observe that organisms, we'll find some more different organisms. Okay, that means we can see the different variety of organisms other than this, what you are observing around you. Okay, and next, obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would probably see a much greater number and kinds of living organisms. Okay, if you go to a dense forest, okay, if you go to a dense forest, probably you'll find more different types of organisms. Okay, each different kind of plant, animal, or organism that you see represents a species. Okay, the different type, okay, the different types of organisms that you are seeing around you, the different types of organisms that you are seeing around you, okay, all these are okay, represents the different species. The different organisms are considered as a different species. That means each and every organism is considered as one species, type of organism. That means not one organism, the different kinds of organisms. Okay, each kind of organism is considered as one species. Okay, the number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million. That means up to now, that means there may be some large number of different species might be present on the earth. But up to now, how many organisms are known and described? That is important. Okay, how many organisms are known to us that are not present on the earth? Okay, the number may vary. The number may be higher because okay, we are not okay explored the total area of the earth. We have not observed the each and every corner. Still, the large area is there still to be explored on the earth. So whatever the area that is explored up to now, in that how many organisms are known and described, their characteristic features, that number ranges from 1.7 to 1.8 million species. Here, not the number of organisms, the number of species. 1.7 to 1.7 to 1.8 million species. That means we can say like 17 lakhs to 18 lakh species. Okay, 17 lakhs to 18 lakhs species are present. That is the different kinds of organisms are up to now we know and describe. Okay, this refers to biodiversity. So all these organisms, okay, all these different organisms are called, together we call it as biodiversity. The number and the types of organisms present on Earth. And we should remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. Okay, we should remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. So when you explore a new areas, that means when you go to new places which were not visited before, there we are observing some old ones and also some new organisms. Okay, old ones are already that are also present, and some new organisms which were not even before not discovered, not described, were also present. So okay, every year some around okay 200 to 500 new species were identifying every year. Okay, every year some around 200, okay, 200 to 500 different species in different places of the world they are identifying and describing. Okay, there is as stated earlier, there are millions of plants and animals in the world. Okay, we have said now 1.7 to 1.8 million different species are present. So some millions of plants and animals are present. We know the plants and animals in our own area by their local names. Okay, that means okay, we are okay in different places. They were named by different names. Okay, they will be called by their different names. Okay, in one area, because well, the language may be different and the name may be different. Okay, because of that language. Okay, so in different places they were named by they were called by the different local names. These local names would vary from place to place, even within a country also. Okay, for example, you can observe now. Okay, in Tamil, what we call it as a dog, nai. Okay, and next, in case, okay, in Telugu we call it as kuka. In Hindi they call it as kutta. Okay, English dog. So in different places, in different languages, they were named as a different names, the local names. So these local names would vary from place to place, even within a country. Within our country only, now only we have gone with 4 different names within our country. Probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find ways and means to talk to each other. Okay, probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did find ways and means to talk to each other, to refer to organisms we are talking about. So that means if we are calling with the local name, okay, we'll be having a lot of confusion. Okay, and the same words may have different meanings in different languages. Okay, so and while we are okay, if you are going with a common meeting among different people, if you are using this local name, then it will be very difficult for understanding. So it will create a confusion to recognize the organism. So that's why here there is a need to standardize the naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. This process is called nomenclature. So that's why we have to standardize this naming a organism that we can give a okay, we can give only one common name to the organism, which can be used by all the people over the world instead of using the local name. Because the local giving the local name is creating a problem. Okay, so that's why okay we are standardizing this naming the living organisms, and we are giving a particular name to a organism which can be used throughout the world. The same name is used throughout the world, and this process of naming the organism, we are calling it as nomenclature. Obviously, nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know what organism the name is attached to. This is identification. That means when you want to give a nomenclature or when you want to name the organism in a scientific manner, first of all, we have to describe that organism. That means whatever the characters that are exhibited by that organism, all those characters we have to study thoroughly. So after studying the characters that are exhibited by that organism, okay, then only we can able to give the scientific name to our organism. So giving scientific name to the organism is called nomenclature, and at the same time, okay, describing the organism correctly in a scientific manner, we are calling it as identification. So if you want to go with the nomenclature, all we have to go with the identification. So in order to facilitate the study, number of scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organism. This is acceptable to biologists all over the world. So that means, okay, different scientists has given different procedures to give a scientific name to an organism, but all are not accepted. Okay, okay, whatever the specifications that are given by the different scientists, that should be accepted by all the scientists or all the biologists of the world. So that is for plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria, which are provided in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. Okay, there is an organization. Okay, there is an organization called as the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, which is okay, the abbreviated as ICBN. International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, ICBN. Okay, when you observe this, okay, for example, if any person has discovered a plant species, what he has to do means, after describing all the characters of that species, okay, and he has, okay, and he will give the scientific name to that plant species, and later, sorry, okay, he has to submit all his findings to the organization called ICBN, that is the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, where it is approved. Okay, okay, and okay, that means what they will see means whether he has followed all the principles and the proper criteria is followed while describing the plant. And finally, they will provide scientific name to that plant species. So the scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. Okay, here we should not give one name to two different organisms. Okay, that is not okay. That is not the aim of this nomenclature. Okay, we have to give a specific name to each and every organism. Okay. That is okay. And you may ask how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have evolved international code of zoological nomenclature. For animals, we have got ICZN, that is the International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. For plants, we have got International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. So, scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. It may be the plant species or animal species. Okay, one organism will have only one name. Okay, description of any organism should enable the people that is in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. Okay, that is okay. Well, the people wherever they are living, the people wherever they are living, if they describe that organism, they will come. Okay, they arrive at the same. Okay, if we are describing the same characteristics, that organism will be given the same organism. Okay, same name. Okay, that is so that means while we are describing, if it is showing the characters similar to that of organism which was earlier discovered, for that organism we have to give the same name. We should not change. Okay, so finally he has to come at the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other organism known or any other known organism. So why this ICBN and ICZN were placed means or developed means, okay, to ensure that one species will have only one organism, and whatever the scientific name that you have given, that should not be used for another organism. That means to ensure that only one name is given to one organism and it should not be used for any other organism. That's why this ICBN and ICZN were placed. Okay, and already you had you have studied in your lower class about this in the ninth class. I think so in CBSE. If you are a CBSE student, you might have studied in your ninth class. I think so. Okay, about the nomenclature, the very important nomenclature, that is the binomial nomenclature. Okay, binomial nomenclature or binomial nomenclature. Okay, biologists follow universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. That means while you are giving a scientific name to an organism, we have to follow certain principles. Okay, we have to follow certain principles. Okay, which are provided in a scientific manner, which are accepted by all over the world. What are those principles? Okay, two components. Okay, while giving a scientific name to an organism, okay, the scientific name of an organism or a species has got two components. The first name is the generic name, and the second name is the specific epithet, or we can also call it as a species name. Specific epithet or a species name. Okay, that is okay. That means every scientific name, okay, that is every biological name will have two components. One is the generic name, which represents the genus of that organism, and the second one is specific epithet, which represents the species name of that organism. Generic name and specific epithet. Okay, this system of providing a name with the two components is called binomial nomenclature. So, as we are using two components while giving a scientific name to an organism, that's why we are calling this nomenclature as a binomial nomenclature. Bi means two, nomen means names. As it consists of two components, that's why we are calling as binomial nomenclature. This naming system given by Carlos Linnaeus. Okay, this naming system. Okay, that means this binomial nomenclature, the principles for providing a binomial nomenclature was given by Carlos Linnaeus, is being practiced by just all over the world. That means whatever the principles that were given by this Carlos Linnaeus only, still now we are following the same principles which was given by Carlos Linnaeus by all the biologists all over the world while giving the scientific name. Okay, this naming system using a two-word format was found convenient. So giving a two-word, okay, that is giving a scientific name with the two-word. All over the world is accepted and convenient. Okay, let us take example of mango to understand the way of providing scientific names better. Okay, the scientific name of mango is written as the Mangifera indica. Okay, here we can see the two words Mangifera and the second word is indica. Mangifera indica. So here the Mangifera represents the genus name and indica represents the specific epithet. Let us see how it is a binomial name. In this name, Mangifera represents a genus, while indica is a particular species or a specific epithet. Okay, and next, other universal rules of nomenclature. That means while giving a scientific name to an organism, what are the other rules or principles follow? Okay, we can see here biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. That means, okay, while giving a scientific name to an organism, the word has to be taken from the Latin. The word has to be taken in the Latin. Okay, for example, okay, in core, okay, in the future you might have, you might have discovered a new organism. You have discovered a new organism. Okay, say somewhat, okay, some like a then, okay, for example, he has discovered a new organism. He wants to give a scientific name to the organism. So that, okay, he wants to give his name so that he will be remembered, okay, throughout the world. So okay, he can't give directly his name. Then what he has to do means, what is the name he wants to give? Okay, he has to refer to the Latin language, and what is the meaning of that, and what is the word that is suited in the Latin for that word. That one only we can keep it for the as a scientific name. Okay, for example, say like a Srinivas. Okay, a person called Srinivas might have discovered a new organism, and he described all the characters, and he wants to keep his name to that organism. Simply he can't give Srinivas. What he has to do means he has to go to the Latin. What is the word that represents Srinivas in Latin? And that word he has to keep. That is okay. So biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. That means while you are writing the organism name, okay, that should be written in italics or printed in italics. That is, they are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. That means, okay, even if they are, okay, that means they want any other names, but okay, we can't give directly that name. We have to represent. Okay, that should be okay. It is the represent irrespective. Okay, that should represent the Latin. Whatever the meaning that it represented in the Latin, that one only. That is what we say. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. Okay. Okay. Biological names are generally the Latin. Okay. Generally in Latin and written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of origin. And next, the first word in a biological name represents the genus, while the second component denotes the specific epithet. Already we discussed. Okay, the first word represents the genus name, and the second word represents a specific epithet. Okay, and next, both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined. Okay, that means while you are writing, okay, while you are writing the scientific name, so it is very difficult to write in italics now. Okay, it is very difficult to write in italics. So for that, okay, as we find difficult in writing, okay, in italics form. So what they are saying, okay, okay, the biological name when handwritten are separately underlined. That means the scientific name should be underlined or printed in italics. That means while printing, it should be printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. Okay, why we have to underline while writing? or why we have to print in italics means to understand that these words are taken from a Latin. Okay, the first word denoting the genus starts with a capital letter. Okay, while giving the scientific name, or while writing the scientific name, or while printing the scientific name, okay, the first word, that is the genus name, should be written with the capital letter. Okay, the first word should start with or genus name start with the capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. Okay, or while representing the specific epithet, always make sure that the specific epithet should be started with a small letter. Remember this one very carefully. Okay, if you use a capital letter for a specific epithet or species name, you will lose marks. Okay, if you use a small letter for representing the genus name, you will lose marks. Remember very clearly. So for representing the genus name or first word in a binomial nomenclature, we have to use the capital word, capital letter, and while representing the specific epithet or species name, we have to represent with a small letter. Okay, it can be illustrated with an example of Mangifera indica. We can see here the Mangifera, the M is written in capital letters, and indica, which is the specific epithet, is written with started with a small letter, and they are printed in italics. Okay, that is so that what we have to understand this. Okay, that is how the representation of a scientific name is given. Anybody is having any doubt? Anybody is having any doubt, ma? You can unmute yourself and you can ask your doubt. Okay. Okay, that is for today. Okay, we'll continue in the next class.